Is jazz pretentious? A personal exploration of its complexity and accessibility. In examining the intricacies of jazz and its evolving complexity, it's important to note that this perspective I'm about to share is purely my opinion. It's shaped by my personal experiences and observations as a jazz enthusiast with no formal education in jazz. As someone deeply passionate about the genre, I've often found myself both enthralled and perplexed by its expanding boundaries. While my viewpoint might lack depth of formal musical training, it certainly reflects the sentiment of many casual listeners who grapple with the balance between jazz's captivating allure and its increasingly complex nature. So I don't think it's one that should be quickly disregarded. However, I do encourage readers to take this viewpoint with a pinch of salt, understanding that it's one among many in the ongoing dialogue about the essence and future of the genre. So in general, jazz is a genre renowned for its improvisational freedom and intricate harmonies, and has long been a musical realm that captivates enthusiasts and musicians alike. As a devoted fan myself, I found myself deeply immersed in its rich history and original intentions. However, the contemporary jazz scene often leaves me questioning its accessibility and appeal to the wider audience. Is jazz pretentious? In my opinion, yes, it is, and here's why. Simply scrolling through the YouTube video session, it becomes apparent that there's a wave of passive aggression or negativity directed towards jazz, perhaps aimed at musicians or the genre as a whole. Fortunately, people like Jacob Collier often bear the brunt of this criticism, which in my opinion isn't really fair. Even playlists aren't exempt from the mockery. Just looking at some of the playlist names highlights a concerning trend of kind of general disdain towards a genre that holds immense cultural and artistic significance. I guess it's not something to dwell on too much. But that's just it. To understand jazz, one must delve into its roots. Jazz, a brief history. The history of jazz is a vibrant tapestry woven with diverse cultural threads, musical innovation and social evolution. Emerging in the late 19th and early 20th century, jazz did find its roots in the African American community of New Orleans, blending elements of ragtime, blues, and African musical traditions. Before jazz emerged as a distinct musical genre, its roots can be traced back to the rhythmic traditions of African music. Today, jazz continues to evolve and embrace a wide spectrum of musical techniques, ornamentations, and styles. One of the notable aspects of this evolution is the technique of reharmonization. This technique has undoubtedly contributed to the genre's complexity and harmonic intrigue. However, it also raises questions about accessibility and the balance between technical brilliance and musical beauty. It also happens to be a pretty compelling illustration of the often ostentatious and unnecessary ornamentation that pervades music, often labeled as jazz. Reharmonization is a technique where musicians modify the original harmony of a song, and it has become a hallmark of jazz innovation. While this practice can yield intriguing results, it often spirals into a showcase of virtuosity and theoretical prowess, leaving behind the fundamental principle of music to sound pleasant yet interesting. Many contemporary jazz musicians seem more focused on flaunting their knowledge of complex chords and sometimes frankly abstract, borderline esoteric musical elements, creating a realm that exists in isolation and only understood by a select few. The problem lies in this disconnect between musicians and their audience. Fancy reharmonizations packed with intricate chord progressions may dazzle fellow musicians, but they can, of course, bewilder and alienate the average listener. Music at its core is a form of communication that transcends words, and it should be accessible, inviting, and able to resonate with a diverse audience. In my opinion, jazz in its current state struggles to strike a balance between its complexity and its appeal. And that's me being honest, especially as someone who cherishes the genre. I do yearn to witness musicians employing their theoretical knowledge judiciously, enhancing their compositions with just a fraction of the vast theoretical arsenal they possess. This approach would not only make jazz more approachable for the general public, but also preserve its authenticity and charm, in my opinion. Indeed, is it truly fair to label jazz musicians as pretentious simply because they utilize a complex vocabulary to articulate the intricate harmonic and rhythmic concepts ingrained in their minds? Of course not. I mean, even this very sentence could probably be labelled as pretentious with the number of 3+ syllable words that went into its construction, to be honest. Obviously, the problem isn't just with reharmonizations, it's with original compositions. However, I don't think that's fair. It's obviously not fair. It is essential to recognize that just as someone trained in the art of rock will naturally produce rock music, individuals who inherently grew up around jazz music will inevitably create music heavily influenced by jazz. It is a reminder even for myself that the complexity observed in jazz compositions isn't intentional arrogance, but rather the result of musicians expressing their musical emotion through the vocabulary they identify with best. This appreciation for different musical languages can help bridge the gap between perceived pretentiousness and the genuine artistic expression that resides within the realm of jazz. In that same regard, I often perceive music as a genuine language, a universal mode of expression that transcends cultural boundaries. Just like any language, it only makes sense to communicate effectively by speaking in a way that resonates with the listener. Attempting to appeal to the masses by using a musical dialect that most don't understand is indeed akin to speaking in a foreign language without translation and then wondering why the message isn't received as intended or why the music itself isn't as popular as desired. Of course, many factors do go into the popularity of music in general. However, in the realm of jazz, as with any genre, finding the delicate balance between complexity and accessibility is essential to ensure the beauty of the message isn't lost in translation, allowing the music to truly connect with diverse audiences.